Welcome to Fun Facts Daily, your source for just the good stuff. Monday through Friday, we're bringing fun facts and news you can use, all carefully curated to uplift and inform. So give yourself a break, relax, and learn something awesome in just a few minutes every day. Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Wood, and today we're going to be learning all about the highest mountain peak on Earth, Mount Everest. But before we get into the facts, let's warm up our brains with a little challenge to see if you can tell fact from fiction. Consider this. When you think of the highest peak on Earth, towering miles above sea level, you probably imagine a harsh world of pure rock, ice, and snow. But what if I told you that hidden among the frozen peaks of Mount Everest, you could actually find the fossilized remains of ancient sea creatures? What do you think? Could the roof of the world really be covered in the remnants of the ocean floor? Or is this just too good to be true? We'll find out at the end of the episode. Now for your word of the day. Our word for today is orogeny. That's O-R-O-G-E-N-Y. Orogeny is the scientific term for the incredible process of mountain building, which occurs when the Earth's tectonic plates collide, compress, and fold the Earth's crust upward over millions of years. It's the mechanism that creates the vast mountain ranges we see across the globe, including the Himalayas, where Mount Everest is located. Without orogeny, our planet would be relatively flat and entirely devoid of the breathtaking peaks that inspire so many adventurers. The word orogeny comes from Greek roots oros, which means mountain, and genia, which means origin or birth. So orogeny literally translates to the birth of mountains. When we look at Mount Everest, we're looking at the spectacular result of a geological birthing process that began over 50 million years ago when the Indian tectonic plate crashed into the Eurasian plate. Time for your daily high five, our top 5 fun facts about Mount Everest. Number 1. Mount Everest was named after a British surveyor who never actually saw it and didn't want it named after him. Before it received its famous English name, the peak was designated as just Peak 15 by British and Indian surveyors mapping the region. In 1852, an incredibly talented Indian mathematician named Radhanath Sikdar used complex trigonometric calculations to determine that it was the highest mountain peak in the world. The Royal Geographical Society eventually chose to name the mountain after Sir George Everest, a former surveyor general in India. Interestingly enough, Sir George never actually laid eyes on the mountain, and he even objected to the honor. He worried that the local people wouldn't be able to pronounce his surname, which he actually pronounced Everest rather than the modern Everest. Of course, that's the Western name for the mountain. Long before that, local populations had their own names for the peak. The Tibetan people have known the mountain for centuries as Chomolungma, which translates to Goddess Mother of the World or Holy Mother. In Nepal, the mountain is officially known as Sagarmatha, meaning peak of heaven or foreland in the sky. These names show the deep spiritual reverence that the local cultures hold for the mountain, viewing it as a sacred entity rather than an object to conquer. Even today, climbers partake in a traditional puja ceremony at base camp to ask the mountain for safe passage before beginning their ascent. Number 2. Mount Everest is pretty big, but it's actually still growing every year. You might think that a mountain of solid rock is basically permanent and stationary, but Everest is surprisingly dynamic and constantly changing. The geological process of orogeny is actually still happening, as the Indian tectonic plate is still pushing underneath the Eurasian plate. This immense continental collision forces the Himalayas further up into the sky at a steady, measurable pace. The scientists estimate that Mount Everest grows by about a quarter of an inch or about 4 millimeters every year. This continuous upward growth means the mountain is literally reaching new heights as time goes on. Periodically, geologists from Nepal and China will use advanced GPS technology and heavy surveying equipment to remeasure the summit. In late 2020, they announced a newly agreed upon official height of 29,031.7 feet above sea level, adding over 2 feet to the previous widely accepted measurement. Number 3. While all sorts of legends of an abominable snow creature might abound, the highest permanent resident on Mount Everest is actually just a tiny but tough species of jumping spider. Humans require thick down suits and supplemental oxygen to survive near the summit, but a tiny creature called the Himalayan jumping spider calls this extreme environment its home. The resilient little arachnid goes by the scientific name Euophoris omnisuperstis, which translates to standing above all. These spiders have been discovered living in the rocky crevices of Everest at altitudes of up to 22,000 feet. At this height, they're considered one of the highest dwelling animals on the entire planet. You might be wondering what a tiny spider could possibly eat in a barren wasteland of ice and rock. Well, as the old saying goes, the answer is blowing in the wind. The updrafts that batter the Himalayan slopes actually carry stray insects and organic debris up the mountain from the lush valleys far below, effectively delivering a frozen buffet right to the spider's doorstep. Number 4. In May of 2013, an 80-year-old Japanese grandfather reached the summit of Mount Everest, setting the world record for the oldest person ever to summit the highest peak. We often think of extreme mountaineering as a sport for just young, peak condition athletes, but a man named Yuichiro Miura proved that age is really just a number. In May of 2013, he was determined to reach the peak, and he did. He climbed to the highest point on Earth at the age of 80 years and 226 days old. What makes the story even more amazing is he had previously undergone 4 separate heart surgeries before making the grueling trek to the top. His record-breaking achievement completely shattered the world's expectations for what the human body can endure in its later years. It stands as a beautiful testament to the power of maintaining an active lifestyle and never letting go of even your wildest dreams. Of course, his journey to the top wasn't a solo effort. It was a family affair that relied on incredible teamwork and mutual support. He was accompanied on the climb by a dedicated team of Sherpas, as well as his own son, Goda Miura, who climbed right alongside him to keep a close eye on his health. The Miura family was actually a dynasty of famous adventurers, as Yuichiro's own father skied down Europe's Mont Blanc at the age of 99. And our 5th and final fun fact for today. If you tried to brew a cup of coffee or tea at the summit of Mount Everest, you might find that water boils at a surprisingly low, just lukewarm temperature. We all learned in our science classes that water reaches a boiling point at 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius. But that's true at sea level. The boiling point of a liquid is directly tied to the atmospheric pressure pushing down on it, which drastically decreases the higher up you go. Because the air is so thin at the summit of Everest, there's very little atmospheric pressure acting on the water in your pot. This means that the water at the peak will actually come to a rolling boil at around 160 degrees Fahrenheit or 71 degrees Celsius. While a boiling pot of water always sounds hot, 160 degrees is barely enough to properly steep a good cup of black tea. And this kind of creates a headache for climbers trying to cook their meals at high altitude base camps. Because the boiling water never gets hot enough to soften hard foods, boiling a simple potato or a pot of pasta can take hours, and they still might end up crunchy. To get around this, high altitude expeditions rely almost entirely on specialized freeze dried meals that only require warm water to rehydrate. Now for some news you can use. Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay were famously the first two mountaineers confirmed to reach the summit of Everest. And Hillary once said, quote, "It's not the mountain we conquered, but ourselves," end quote. When climbers tackle Everest, their biggest obstacle isn't actually the ice or the wind, it's the little voice in their head telling them that they're too tired to take another step. They have to find inner strength to keep going when things get incredibly difficult. You might not be climbing a frozen peak today, but we all have our own mountains to climb. Maybe it's a tough math test, a difficult conversation with a friend, or learning a brand new skill. Just like those climbers, you have the strength inside you, you just have to take it one step at a time. So today, when you're facing a challenge, remember the climbers on Everest. Take a deep breath, believe in yourself, and then just take that next step, and then another, until you reach your goal. Finally, the moment you've been waiting for. At the beginning of the episode, I asked, could it possibly be true that the snowy summit of Mount Everest is actually covered in fossilized remains of ancient sea creatures? Well, oddly enough, that's a fact. Around 450 million years ago, the limestone rock that currently forms the very top of Mount Everest was actually resting at the bottom of an ancient tropical ocean known as the Tethys Sea. As the tectonic plates shifted and the Indian subcontinent smashed into Asia, the ocean floor was violently pushed upwards, eventually becoming the towering Himalayan mountain range. Today, geologists and climbers can clearly see the fossilized remains of ancient marine animals called crinoids, as well as the shells of trilobites embedded right in the rock near the summit. It's a fantastic reminder that our Earth is a wonderfully strange place. Now, I hope you enjoyed learning a bit about Mount Everest with me today, and be sure to tune in every weekday for even more fun facts. Fun Facts Daily is an Airwave Media podcast. It was written, recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Kyle Wood. Thanks for sharing a part of your day with me. Be sure to follow Fun Facts Daily on your favorite podcast app so you can keep the good stuff coming your way every day. And if you like the show, please do me a favor and leave a kind rating, review, or just tell your friends about it.